The planet Deezen hung in the blackness like a blue and green marble, beautiful and fragile. Around it, a ring of metal and light tightened like a noose. It was the grand fleet of the Galactic Concord, a gathering of warships from the three great empires, the Vrix, the Solani, and the Pelagians. Their ships looked like nightmares made real. The Vrix vessels were spiky and organic, like beetles carved from bone. The Solani ships were all sharp crystal angles, reflecting cold starlight. The Pelagian craft flowed like liquid metal, shaped by unseen currents. On the bridge of the Vrix command ship, the Hive's Sting, Fleet Commander Kraxel watched the planet below. His multifaceted eyes took in every screen and data stream. He felt no excitement, only the cool satisfaction of a task nearly complete. The humans, a species so new to the galaxy they were practically children, had made a fatal mistake. They had settled a world on the edge of Concord-claimed space. It was an opportunity, a perfect chance to show the lesser species their place. The Concord had not even needed to invent a reason. They simply declared the humans were trespassing and sent the fleet. The final defensive platforms are neutralized, buzzed a Vrix officer. Its mandibles clicking. Good, Kraxel replied, his voice a dry rustle. Open a channel to the human settlement. Let us end their pointless defiance. Down on Deezen, in a bunker buried deep under the governor's complex, Ji-Hyen tried to keep her hands from shaking. She was not a soldier. She was a bureaucrat, a community organizer from Seoul who had volunteered to help build this new world. Her dark hair was tied back tightly, but a few strands had escaped, sticking to her damp forehead. The screens in front of her showed the terrifying view from the surface. The alien ships, massive and menacing, blotting out the stars. They're hailing us. Governor, a young communications officer, a man named Day, said. His voice tight. Ji-Hyen took a deep breath, smoothing the front of her simple gray jumpsuit. Put them on. The main screen flickered. The image of Kraxel filled it, his insectoid face unreadable to human eyes, but his posture screaming of disdain. Governor Ji-Hyen, his translated voice came through, flat and mechanical. Your resistance is concluded. You will order your remaining forces to stand down and surrender the colony of Deezen to the authority of the Galactic Concord. Compliance will be met with orderly processing. Ji-Hyen felt a cold fury rise in her chest, pushing back the fear. Processing? This is our home. We have violated no treaties. Your claim is a lie, and you know it. We ask only that you leave in peace. A chittering sound, a Vrix laugh, came from the speakers. Your ask is irrelevant. You have 1 standard hour to transmit your unconditional surrender. If you do not, we will begin planetary bombardment of military targets. The consequences for your civilian population will be severe. The screen went dark. The bunker was silent except for the low hum of machinery and someone's ragged breathing. Ji-Hyen closed her eyes for a moment. She knew what the military assessment had been. The colony's few patrol ships were no match for the Concord fleet. Their ground defenses could maybe knock down a few landing craft, but that would only give the aliens an excuse for worse violence. What are your orders, Governor? Day asked quietly. Her orders. Her responsibility. 40,000 men, women, and children were on the surface, looking to the sky in terror. She had a script, a protocol for this exact nightmare scenario, handed down from the Office of Extrasolar Settlement. It felt like ashes in her mouth. Open a general broadcast, she said, her voice finding a strength she didn't feel. All frequencies. I will speak to them. As the camera light on her console glowed red, Ji-Hyen looked directly into it. She spoke not to Kraxel, but to anyone in the galaxy who might be listening, her voice clear and steady despite the tremor in her hands. People of Deezen. To the Galactic Concord. This is Governor Park Ji-hyun. We are a peaceful colony. We have no warships. We pose no threat. We beg for mercy. We ask the galaxy to witness this act of aggression against a people who only wish to live and work in peace. Do not do this. There is no honor here, please. She ended the transmission, the word please hanging in the quiet air of the bunker. On the screens, the Concorde fleet did not move. No response came. Aboard the Hive's Sting, Kraxel watched the humans plea with his command staff. The Solani captain, a being of shimmering light named Kaver, pulsed with mild amusement. Pathetic. They beg when they have nothing left. It is the same with all young species. All noise and emotion, no power. The Pelasian admiral, a tall figure with shimmering, damp skin, named Alara, shifted. Their signal is weak. It will not reach far. The galaxy, as they call it, will not be watching. There are no witnesses here but us. Precisely, Kraxel said. Let their mercy be a lesson to any other upstarts. The strong do what they can. The weak suffer what they must. Prepare the first bombardment wave. Target their spaceport and energy grid. We will make an example. But before the order could be given, a new alert chimed. A sensor officer turned, its clicks rapid. Commander. A small contact. A human vessel. It has just jumped in at the edge of the system. It is moving. Toward us. On the tactical screen, a single small icon appeared. It was a human corvette, a blocky, utilitarian design designated the Gicheon. It was alone. Kraxel felt a flash of irritation. A single ship? What is it doing? The Gicheon did not hail them. It did not alter its course. It simply powered up its engines to maximum and drove straight toward the heart of the Concorde fleet, its single modest plasma cannon glowing with a charging light. On the bridge of the Gicheon, Captain Lee Min-soo tightened the straps on his crash harness. His ship was old, a border patrol vessel meant for chasing smugglers, not fighting wars. His crew, just 10 men and women, were silent at their stations. The main viewer showed the terrifying swarm of alien ships ahead, growing larger every second. His tactical officer, a young woman named Yoon-ji, spoke softly. Captain, all Concorde capital ships are locked in. Their point defense networks are active. We are being painted by 17 different targeting systems. Min-soo nodded. He was a career officer, his hair streaked with gray, his face lined from a lifetime of staring at stars. He knew the numbers. He knew the odds. They were 0. This was not an attack. It was a statement. Remember the protocol, everyone, Min-soo said, his voice calm, almost gentle. This is the final step. We show them we are not afraid. We show Deezen they are not forgotten. We make them look at us. He opened the ship-wide com. This is the captain. In a moment, we will enter their effective range. We will fire our cannon once at the largest target you can manage, Yoon-ji. Then we will try to get as close as we can. There will be no surrender broadcast. They do not deserve to hear our voices. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve with you all. He closed the channel. No one replied. They didn't need to. The silence was full of understanding. The Concorde fleet watched the tiny ship come. On the Hive's Sting, convulsed with bright derision. It is charging its weapon. This is comical. It is like an insect stinging a mountain. Destroy it, Kraxel ordered, boredom in his voice. A waste of ammunition, but do it cleanly. 3 Vrix fighters, swift and deadly, broke from their formation and swept toward the Gicheon. They fired a volley of plasma bolts. Yoon-ji, her hands dancing over her console, chinked the corvette hard to port, avoiding the first 2. The third grazed their shields, sending a shudder through the hull. Alarms blared. Shields at 40%. Someone yelled. "Fire the cannon," Minsu said. The Geechan's single gun fired. A bolt of blue plasma lanced out across the void, striking the heavy armor of a Vrix carrier. It left a small blackened scorch mark. No damage. The Vrix fighters came around for another pass. This time, their fire was precise. Twin bolts sheared through the Geechan's engine housing. Another blast took out its weapons array. The small ship tumbled, dead in space, a trail of coolant and debris sparkling behind it in the silent bunker on Deezen. Ji Hyan watched the icon of the Geechion go dark on the tactical screen. A single silent tear traced a path down her cheek. They were truly alone now. Aboard the command ship, Kraxel dismissed the event. A pointless gesture. Scrap the wreckage later. Now, return to the matter at hand. Begin the bombardment. Let the humans below see what their defiance has earned them. The Concord fleet, confident and unchallenged, finalized its formations around the helpless world. They had swatted the only fly that dared to buzz near them. The lesson, they believed, was complete. The galaxy was a harsh place, and the humans had just failed their first and final test. The bridge of the Vrix command ship was a scene of quiet, smug efficiency. The destruction of the human corvette had been a brief, satisfying punctuation to their victory. Now the main task remained. Fleet Commander Kraxel observed the tactical display. The planet Deezen was a perfect blue circle, surrounded by the neat, orderly icons of his mighty fleet. The single fading marker of the ruined Geechion was a footnote, already disappearing from the edge of the screen. "Orbital bombardment pattern is set, Commander," buzzed a Vrix officer. "Primary targets: the spaceport, the main fusion plant, and the Colonial Administration Complex. This will eliminate their ability to coordinate resistance or call for help." Kraxel gave a slow nod, his carapace clicking. "Proceed. A clean, surgical strike. Let them understand the cost of wasting our time with their little speech and their suicidal ship." On the surface, in the bunker, Ji-Hein watched the alien vessels begin to move into new positions. Their weapon ports, once dark, now glowed with a sinister energy. She held her breath, her hand gripping the edge of the console so tightly her knuckles were white. This was it, the end of everything they had built. She thought of the parks in the main settlement, the school that had just finished its first term, the greenhouses full of earth crops struggling to adapt, all about to be turned to fire and ash. "Governor," Day whispered, his voice hollow. "They're powering weapons." Ji-Hein could only nod, her throat too tight for words. She reached out and took Day's hand, a gesture of shared despair. They would face this moment together, at least. Aboard the Geechion, drifting and powerless, Captain Minsu blinked blood from his eyes. The impact had thrown him against his console. The bridge was dark, lit only by flashing red emergency lights and the cold glow of the stars through the cracked viewport. The air was getting thin and cold. He could hear the moans of his wounded crew. Yoon-ji was slumped over her station, not moving. With a grunt of pain, he pushed himself back into his chair. His console was dead, but the secondary navigation screen, running on a separate battery, still flickered. It showed the same view as the aliens. Deezen, beautiful and doomed, with the Concord fleet arrayed around it like wolves around a lamb. A deep, shameful grief washed over him. His gesture had been brave, but it had changed nothing. He had failed. Then, a tiny anomaly registered on the broken screen. At the very edge of its limited sensor range, space itself seemed to waver. It was a distortion, like heat rising off a desert, but out here in the freezing void. It was in the blind spot of the Concord fleet, behind them relative to the planet. Min Su frowned, wiping more blood from his brow. Was he hallucinating from the head wound? He squinted. The distortion grew, a ripple in the fabric of reality that spread silently across the stars. On the hive's sting, the sensors were far more advanced, but they were pointed at the planet, their focus on the bombardment. The ripple was picked up by a peripheral array, flagged as a minor gravitational fluctuation, perhaps a small piece of space debris, or a sensor echo from the destroyed corvette. The automated system filed the report away, prioritizing the active combat operations. Kraxel raised a clawed hand, ready to give the final order to fire. The ripple collapsed. And something was there, Dot. It did not emerge from the jump point with a flash of energy. It did not decloak in stages. One moment, there was empty space. The next, a warship occupied it. It was monstrous in its size, easily 3 times the mass of the largest Vrix carrier. Its shape was all harsh, dark angles and flat planes, absorbing the starlight instead of reflecting it. It looked less like a ship and more like a mountain that had been sharpened into a weapon and painted the color of midnight. Along its flank, in simple, blocky human script, were the letters UHSMI. For 3 full seconds, nothing happened. The Concorde fleet continued its operations, unaware. The ship, the Mai, hung in perfect silence. Then, every single communication panel, every tactical screen, and every internal comm channel on every Concorde ship lit up at once. A single line of text, in clear, translated Galactic Common. Scrolled across them, Dot, you are trespassing in sovereign human space. Stand down. On the bridge of the hive's sting, the message flashed over Kraxel's main display, obscuring his targeting data. He jerked back, a hiss of surprise and irritation escaping him. What is this? A trick? Where did this ship come from? Identify it. Sensors. Scanning. The officer clicked frantically. Mass is enormous. Energy signature is. It does not match any known profile. It is human, Commander. The script is human. But the power readings, they are impossible. Kraxel felt the first cold trickle of something unfamiliar in his veins. It was not fear, not yet. It was the annoyance of a planned ceremony being interrupted by an uninvited guest. A human dreadnought? They have no such technology. It is a hologram, a scare tactic. Target it with a full sensor sweep, and open a channel. I will not be addressed in such a manner. Inside the bunker on Deezen, Ji Hyon stared as the new message appeared on her own screen, overwriting the bombardment countdown. The text was stark, authoritative. UHSMI, a human ship. Her heart, which had sunk into a pit of despair, gave a frantic, painful thump. What was happening? On the dead bridge of the Gitzion, Minsu saw the message on his flickering screen. A sound escaped him, a ragged mix of a cough and a laugh. He knew that naming convention. Haas, United Human Ship. It was real. The protocol, the final desperate hope he had been briefed on in secret years ago. It was real. He slumped back, a wave of relief and exhaustion hitting him so hard he almost blacked out. The bridge of the UHSMI was nothing like the cramped, noisy deck of the Gitzion. It was vast, quiet, and bathed in a soft, cool light. The walls were smooth, seamless displays showing a perfect 360-degree view of space. In the center, seated in a simple command chair that seemed to be made of worn, dark leather, was Admiral Kang Yuna. Her hair was steel gray, cut short and practical. Her face was calm, lined with experience and an immense, patient stillness. She watched the swarm of alien icons on the main display, as one might watch ants scurry on a path. "Admiral," said her weapons officer, Commander Park Tae-ju, from his station to her right. His voice was as calm as hers. "All primary and secondary targets are locked. Their point defense grids are mapped. Their shield harmonics are analyzed. We have solutions for 73% of their fleet. The rest will require a second salvo. Yuna nodded slowly. And the Gichian? Life signs are faint, but present. They are adrift. No power. Note the coordinates for recovery, she said. Her eyes never left the main display, where a smaller window now showed the angry, insectoid face of Fleet Commander Kraxel, as the Concorde finally managed to open a visual channel. Unidentified vessel. Kraxel's translated voice crackled, filled with forced authority. You are interfering in a lawful Concorde military operation. You will identify yourself properly and withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. Admiral Yuna looked at the alien commander for a long, silent moment. When she spoke, her voice was not loud, but it carried a weight that seemed to flatten the air on her own bridge. I am Admiral Kang Yuna of the United Human Fleet. You have been instructed to stand down. You have 1 minute to power down your weapons and withdraw your forces from the Deezen system. This is your only warning. On the Vrick screen, the human female looked ordinary, old, even. There was no bluster, no rage. Only a cold, absolute certainty. It was more unnerving than any shout. Kraxel felt his anger spike. This human was looking at him, the conqueror of 100 worlds, as if he were a misbehaving child. He cut the transmission. They are bluffing. 1 ship against our entire fleet? Target that vessel. The Solani cruiser Shard of Dawn will fire a warning shot across its bow. Let them see our resolve. The crystalline Solani ship, beautiful and deadly, pivoted. A lance of focused solar energy, capable of melting through battle plate, lanced out from its main spire. It was not aimed to hit, but to pass close, a classic show of force. On the Mai, Tejiu glanced at his admiral. They are firing a warning shot. Gravitic shear intercept? Point defense only, Yuna said, her tone unchanged. Let them see the difference in our definitions of warning. As the Solani energy beam streaked toward the Mai, a section of the dark hull seemed to shimmer. A web of brilliant blue light, fine as lace and humming with palpable power, sprang into existence around the human dreadnought. The Solani beam struck the web. Instead of exploding or being deflected, the deadly energy simply unraveled. It dissipated into a harmless shower of sparks that faded instantly, as if the beam had been disassembled at the atomic level. The silence on the Concorde, fleet channels was total. Admiral Yuna leaned forward slightly in her chair. Their minute is up, she said, her voice still quiet. Demonstrate, Commander Teju. Target the Pelagian flagship. Use the primary spinal mount. A surgical strike. Teju's hands moved over his console. I, Admiral. Gravitational shear cannon, charged. Targeting the Abyssal Pride. Deep within the Mai, energies older than human civilization were stirred and focused. Along the spine of the colossal ship, a sequence of rings glowed with a light that hurt to look at, even through filters. There was no sound in the vacuum, but on every Concorde ship, sensors screamed a chorus of apocalyptic warnings. A beam, not of light or plasma, but of pure, focused gravitational force, lanced ace. The silence on the bridge of the Hive's sting was a physical thing, thick and cold. Fleet Commander Kraxel stared at the perfect, horrible sphere that had been the Pelagian flagship. His mind, a mind honed for conquest and calculation, could not make the numbers work. A single shot. No explosive fire. Just compression. It was an insult to the natural order of war. A flicker on his console showed the frantic, panicked communications from the rest of the Concorde fleet. But they were just background noise. His eyes shifted to the main display, which now showed the face of the human admiral. She looked as calm as if she were ordering a cup of tea. It was this calmness that finally broke through his shock and ignited a white-hot fury. Humiliation burned worse than fear. You dare. He buzzed, his voice crackling with rage over the channel. You have attacked a Concord flagship. You have declared war upon 3 empires. You and your trickery will be erased from the galaxy. Admiral Yuna did not blink. Trickery, she repeated, the word flat. No, Commander. It is merely a different set of rules. Your minute to stand down expired. You chose a demonstration. You received one. This conversation is your final opportunity to avoid annihilation. Power down your weapons and engines. On the Mai, Commander Taeju watched his own screens. Admiral, the Vrix command ship is charging its primary plasma lances. The Solani are attempting to align their crystal focusing arrays. They are choosing to fight. A small, almost imperceptible sigh escaped Yuna. A predictable choice. From a species that has never been told no. Execute contingency pattern. Pruning shears. Taeju nodded. His fingers danced across his panel. Across the newly arrived human fleet, lights glowed to life. Kraxel, his fury overriding all tactical sense, gave the order. All vessels. Fire at will. Destroy the human command ship. Ignore the others. Focus everything on that one. The space between the 2 fleets erupted. Dozens of plasma bolts, beams of focused solar heat, and torpedoes lanced from the Concord ships toward the Mai. It was a storm of energy, capable of slagging a continent. The human dreadnought did not move. Around it, the web of blue light appeared again, but this time it was different. It pulsed, and where the Concord weapons struck it, they did not just unravel. They were absorbed, the energy seemingly swallowed by the shimmering field. The Mai sat at the heart of the maelstrom, untouched, a dark rock in a river of fire. Then the human fleet responded. They did not fire massive, ship-killing beams. Instead, thousands of small, fast projectiles, no larger than a man streaked from launch tubes on the human cruisers and carriers. They moved with impossible agility, weaving through the Concord defensive fire like a swarm of intelligent insects. Strike craft. Incoming. A Vrix officer screamed, but they were not strike craft. They were drones, each one a sleek, angular weapon with a single purpose. They ignored the larger ships and went straight for the delicate, vital parts of the Concord fleet, the engine nozzles, the sensor arrays, the shield generator housings. On a Vrix carrier, the point defense guns tracked and destroyed a dozen of the drones. But a single drone slipped through, attached itself to the carrier's main thrust cone, and emitted a short, powerful burst of electromagnetic energy. The carrier's engine stuttered and died, leaving it drifting. A Solani cruiser tried to pivot, its crystalline surface refracting defensive lasers. 2 drones latched onto its main power conduit junctures. There was a silent flash, and half the lights on the cruiser went dark dot. It was not a battle. It was a systematic disabling. The human drones moved with a terrifying, silent coordination, each one a scalpel in a master surgeon's hand. Within minutes, over a third of the Concord fleet was adrift or powerless, their weapons silent, their engines dead. Not a single alien life had been lost since the destruction of the Pelagian ship, but their military strength was being dismantled piece by piece. Inside the bunker on Deason, Ji-Hyun watched the tactical display in stunned disbelief. The red icons of the Concord fleet weren't vanishing. They were turning a blinking, helpless yellow disabled. The blue icons of the human fleet formed a perfect, unmoving net around them. The fear that had gripped her heart was thawing, replaced by a trembling, fierce hope. They're not destroying them all, Bay whispered, his eyes wide. They're just stopping them. Ji-Hyun understood. It was a message clearer than any broadcast. We could destroy you. We choose not to. Yet, on the Gicheon, Captain Minsu used his last bit of strength to pull himself to a viewport. He saw the flashes of light, the silent ballet of destruction and restraint. A pained smile touched his lips. This was the doctrine he had heard whispers of. Minimum necessary force. Overwhelming superiority applied with precision. It was not about rage. It was about making a point so undeniable it could not be argued with. Back on the Hive's sting, Kraxel watched his fleet being taken apart. The reports flooded in. Engines offline, weapons inoperative, shields collapsed. His own ship shuddered as a drone expertly targeted their primary communications array, severing his direct command link to the Solani and the remaining Pelagians. He was isolated. The human admiral's face was still on his screen. She had not moved from her chair. "Your fleet is neutralized, Commander Kraxel. Further resistance is illogical and will result in the loss of life. Your species' lives. We have shown considerable restraint. Do not mistake it for weakness." The word restraint was a knife in Kraxel's pride. They had not even considered this a real fight. They had been gardening, pruning. He looked at the tactical map. Every exit vector was blocked by a human ship. Every weapon his fleet had was being systematically negated. For the first time in his long career, Fleet Commander Kraxel felt the cold, sinking reality of total defeat. Not a heroic last stand, but a humiliating, one-sided shutdown. "What do you want?" He finally transmitted, the buzz gone from his voice, leaving only a hollow rasp. "I want you to understand," Admiral Una said. "This is not a negotiation. You will issue a general order to your entire fleet to cease all hostile actions and shut down all weapons and drive systems. You will then prepare to be boarded for the retrieval of our captured pilot from the Gicheon and for the delivery of terms." "Boarded?" Kraxel sputtered. "You expect us to let you board a Concord vessel?" "I do not expect it. I require it," Una said. Her tone finally shifted, not louder, but harder, like diamond. "You are in sovereign human space. You are defeated. You have two choices: comply or join the Pelagian flagship as a decorative sphere. The choice is simple. I will wait for your fleet-wide surrender signal. You have 30 seconds. The channel closed, leaving Kraxel staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. Around him, his bridge crew was silent, waiting. The officer at the sensor station turned, its compound eyes dull. "Commander, all major systems are offline. We are a target. They are." "They are right." Kraxel's claws clenched. Every instinct screamed to fight, to die in a blaze of glory. But the image of the compressed Pelagian ship filled his mind. There would be no blaze. There would only be a silent, ignominious crunch. And then they would do the same to his next ship, and the next, until the lesson was learned. He was not just a warrior. He was a commander responsible for thousands of lives he had just led into a trap. With a feeling that tasted like ashes, he activated the fleet-wide emergency channel. He did not look at the camera. He spoke to the deck. "This is Fleet Commander Kraxel to all Concord vessels. Cease all hostile actions. Power down all weapons and primary drives. Do not resist the human. Recovery teams. Stand by for further orders." The words felt like poison in his mouth. As he finished, he looked out the main viewport. A small, sleek human shuttle, flanked by two of the deadly drones, was already detaching from the Mai and moving with calm authority toward his crippled command ship. It was over. The silence that followed the surrender order was deeper than the vacuum outside. On the bridge of the Hive's sting, the only sounds were the low hum of emergency power and the faint clicks of Rick's mandibles, a sign of profound distress. Fleet Commander Kraxel stood frozen at his station, watching the human shuttle approach on the main viewer. It was a plain, gray craft, unmarked and unadorned. Its very simplicity felt like another insult. Across the defeated fleet, the same scene played out on 100 ships. Human shuttles and small utility craft, looking like worker bees, moved with efficient calm. They docked with airlocks, their movements precise and unchallenged. There were no explosions, no dramatic breaches. The Concorde crews, trained for glorious battle or heroic last stands, had no protocol for this. They simply watched, stunned and helpless, as the enemy walked in through the front door, the main airlock of the hives. Sting cycled with a hiss that sounded deafening in the silence. A squad of Rick's warriors, their claws sharp and ready, stood in a defensive semicircle, their compound eyes fixed on the opening door. They trembled with the desire to fight, but their commander's order held them in place. The door slid open. 4 humans walked in. They were not in heavy battle armor. They wore simple, dark gray environmental suits, their helmets clear. The lead human was a woman, her face calm, her eyes scanning the room with a detached, analytical look. She carried no visible weapon. The others, 2 men and a woman, held only small data pads and rectangular devices that might have been scanners. They ignored the bristling Vrix warriors completely, as if they were furniture. "I am Commander Park Subin," the lead woman said, her translator producing clean, crisp Vrix clicks. "I am here to retrieve Captain Lee Min-soo and his crew from the Gishion. Your sensor logs indicate you tracked their vessel before it drifted out of range. You will take me to them, now." The Vrix squad leader took a step forward, his claws raised. "You do not give orders here, human." Subin turned her head and looked at him. It was not a glare of anger, but a look of mild, impatient curiosity, like a scientist observing an ant. She said nothing. She just waited. From behind the warriors, Kraxel's voice buzzed, sharp with suppressed fury. "Let them pass. Escort them to the holding bay. Do not interfere." The warriors parted, their posture slumping in confusion. Subin gave a small, polite nod that was somehow more condescending than a sneer, and followed the escorting Vrix down the gloomy corridor. In a dimly lit cargo bay used for storing captured debris. The wreckage of the Gichon's command pod sat on the deck. Captain Min-soo and the 3 surviving members of his crew sat against a wall, battered and bandaged. The air was cold, and the Vrix guards had offered them no food or water. Min-soo kept his eyes on the large doors, trying to project strength he no longer felt. The doors hissed open. He expected more Vrix. He did not expect to see a human in a clean gray suit flanked by them. The woman's eyes found his immediately. "Captain Lee Min-soo?" she asked. He tried to stand, wincing. "Yes, I am Commander Park Subin of the UHS Mai. Admiral Kang Yuna sends her regards." "Your duty is done, Captain. We're here to take you home." She turned to the nearest Vrix guard. "Medical support, now, and water." The Vrix guard looked at her, then at its superior, who gave a sharp nod. Within moments, a basic medical drone and a container of water were brought. The simple act of care, delivered under the watchful eyes of their captors, was a powerful, silent message. As his crew was tended to, Min-soo looked at Subin. "The colony? Diesen?" "Unharmed," she said. "The situation is contained." Her voice was professional, but he saw a flicker of respect in her eyes. "You gave them a perfect focal point. Thank you for your service." Back on the bridge of the Hive's Sting, Admiral Yuna's face filled the main screen again. Kraxel stood before it, feeling exposed and small. "The retrieval is proceeding," Yuna stated. "Now we will discuss terms. This is not a negotiation between empires. This is you receiving instructions. Kraxel found his voice, a thin buzz. You cannot simply dictate terms to the Concord. We already have, Una replied. Here are your instructions. You will withdraw every Concord ship from the Deezen system immediately. You will leave all disabled vessels. We will return them to you, stripped of weapons and drive cores, at a time and place of our choosing. You will transmit a full record of today's events, including your unprovoked aggression and your surrender to the ruling bodies of the Vrix, Solani, and Pelasian empires. Kraxel felt a new kind of horror. You want us to broadcast our shame? I want you to broadcast the truth, Una corrected him. The final instruction is this. Any Concord vessel, from any of your 3 empires, that enters a human-claimed system without explicit prior invitation will be treated as an act of war. And you now have a concrete understanding of what our war looks like. She paused, letting the words sink in. You are wondering how this is possible. You are wondering where we came from. You believed you knew humanity. You saw our scattered colonies, our simple ships, our pleas for peace. You mistook our chosen silence for emptiness. On the screen behind her, a star map appeared. It was not of the bright, crowded galactic arms where the Concord empires squabbled. It was of the dark, vast voids between them, places considered empty and worthless. While you built your empires in the light, we grew in the dark, Una continued, her voice low and steady. The voids between the spiral arms are not empty. They are quiet. And in the quiet, you can think. You can build without endless war. You can develop a technology, not for conquest, but for survival. For deterrence. The map zoomed in, showing countless tiny dots in the darkness. Not stars, stations, shipyards, worlds. Captain Min-Su and the colony on Deezen knew their roles. They are the quiet voice. We are the echo. You chose to hear only the voice and believed it was all there was. You attacked the whisper, and you awakened the thunder. You took the bait, Commander. The entire Concord fleet took the bait. And now you have seen the hook. Kraxel's mind reeled. It was a strategy of a scale and patience his empire could not comprehend. They had not hidden a weapon. They had hidden a civilization. The colonies, the patrol ships, they were a deliberate presentation of weakness, a test. This is a deception. He managed to say, "It is a choice," Una said. "We chose peace. We chose to be left alone. You chose to interpret our choice as weakness. That was your error. The remorse you feel now is not for attacking us. It is for the realization that your understanding of the galaxy is childishly incomplete, and that your power is an illusion we have allowed you to maintain." On the screen, the view shifted to show the human fleet. The disabled Concord ships, like crippled insects, were being gently, impersonally towed by smaller human tugs into a neat formation. "Your shuttle is leaving with your crew, Commander," Una said. "You have your instructions. You will follow them. We will be watching. From the dark." The transmission ended. In the cargo bay, Captain Min-Su, supported by 2 of his crew, watched as the human shuttle prepared to depart. The Vrix guards stood far back, making no move to stop them. As the shuttle door closed, Min-Su took one last look at the gloomy interior of the alien warship. It did not feel like a victory march. It felt like a correction. The shuttle flew smoothly back toward the immense shadow of the Mai. Behind it, the Concord fleet, what was left of it, was already beginning a slow, clumsy retreat toward the system's edge, leaving their disabled comrades behind. They moved not like a mighty armada, but like animals fleeing a forest fire. On Deezen, the sun was rising over the main settlement. Governor Ji Hyan stood outside the bunker, the real sunlight warm on her face. She watched on a portable screen as the alien ships turned and left. The fear was gone. In its place was a profound, weary understanding. They had never been alone. They had been the quiet surface of a very deep, very still ocean, and the galaxy had just seen a glimpse of the depths. The retreat of the Concorde fleet was not a military maneuver. It was a rout of the spirit. The ships that still had power limped toward the system's jump point, their formations broken, their sensor arrays pointed backward in dread. They left behind a graveyard of their own pride. Dozens of cruisers, carriers, and battleships, dark and powerless, held in neat rows by the invisible grip of human tractor beams. Tugs, small and efficient, continued to nudge the silent hulks into orderly lines, as if organizing scrap metal. The silence on the Concorde channels was absolute. There were no brave words, no promises of revenge. Only the hum of engines and the cold, shared shame. Aboard the UHS Mai, the mood was not celebratory. It was one of completion. Admiral Yuna watched the retreat on the main viewer. Captain Min-Su and his surviving crew had been brought aboard, given immediate medical care, and were now resting in the ship's quiet infirmary. Their part in this was over. The last of their functional vessels has crossed the system boundary. Commander Taejiu reported from his station. The disabled fleet is secure. No attempts at self-destruction or boarding resistance. Yuna nodded. Begin the disassembly process. Weapons first, then primary drives. Leave their life support and basic maneuvering. We are not barbarians. Yes, Admiral. On the surface of Dizon, a relief was turning into a quiet, trembling awe. People emerged from shelters, blinking in the sunlight, looking at a sky once again clear of invaders. Governor Ji Hyon stood in the operations center, now above ground. The screens showed the same view as Yuna's, the retreating aliens, the captured fleet. A young technician, her hands still shaking, turned to Ji Hyon. Governor, what do we do now? Ji Hyon looked out the window at her people gathering in the square, looking up, not in fear, but in wonder. We go back to work, she said softly, and we remember that we were never alone. The first sign of the galactic shockwave was the silence from the Concorde. Official channels from the three empires went dead. No victory proclamations, no statements of any kind. The usual background chatter of trade routes and diplomatic gossip ceased, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Then the data packet arrived. As ordered by Admiral Yuna, Commander Krexel had transmitted the full, unedited record of the encounter at Dizon. It contained everything. His arrogant demands, Ji Hyon's plea for mercy, the suicidal charge of the Gicheon, the terrifying decloaking of the Mai, the instantaneous compression of the Pelasian flagship, the swarm of drones that disabled a fleet, and finally, the humiliating surrender and boarding. It was raw, brutal, and undeniable. The packet did not go only to the Concorde leadership. It was sent on open channels, repeating, available for any species with a receiver defined. It was a seed of truth planted in the fertile soil of galactic politics, and it sprouted chaos instantly. On the Vrix homeworld, the Swarm Council watched the recording in a chamber so quiet the clicking of nervous mandibles sounded like thunder. The image of their mighty fleet being dismantled by silent drones, of Kraxel ordering the stand down, played over and over. The military chancellor, a venerable and fierce leader, finally spoke. This changes the calculus. All expansion protocols toward the galactic interior are suspended indefinitely. A younger, more aggressive council member bristled. We must retaliate. Gather the entire armada. And do what? The chancellor rasped. Attack the dark places between the stars? Search for shipyards we cannot see? They have shown us they can crush our best weapons with tools we do not understand. They are not hiding. They are waiting. To fight an enemy you understand is war. To fight a mystery is suicide. Similar scenes played out in the glittering crystal cities of the Solani and the fluidic, deep-sea halls of the Pelagians. The empires were not united in their anger. They were fractured by a new and terrifying variable. All their treaties, their rivalries, their carefully balanced power, it was suddenly meaningless. A new power had entered the equation, one that did not play by their rules, one that measured strength not in the noise of conquest, but in the silence of patience, remorse. As Admiral Yuna understood it, was not an apology. It was a strategic, permanent adjustment. It was the cold sweat realization that every map was wrong, every assumption was flawed, and that for centuries they had been toddlers squabbling on a rug, unaware of the adults watching from the shadows. The remorse the Galactic Concord learned was for their own arrogance. It was the understanding that humanity had looked upon their empires, their fleets, their pride, and had found them insignificant. A standard week after the retreat, the human fleet around Dizen began to move. The captured Concord ships, now stripped of anything that could be used as a weapon or a faster-than-light drive, were released. Their basic thrusters were activated, and they were given a single coordinated push toward the system's edge, a slow, gentle shove toward home. It was the ultimate insult, returning their property, broken and useless, because it was no longer a threat. Because it was clutter dot, as the last captured ship drifted away, the UHS Mai and its supporting fleet gathered near Dizen. Admiral Yuna opened a final channel to the planet. Governor Ji Hyan. Ji Hyan, in her office, answered immediately. Admiral, we owe you everything. You owe us nothing, Yuna said, her face on the screen as calm as ever. You performed your duty with courage. The colony is safe. It will remain safe. You will see patrols from time to time. But the Concord will not return. What happens now? Ji Hyan asked. Now, Yuna said, a hint of something like weariness in her eyes. The galaxy learns to live with a new truth. They will make new plans. They will whisper in council chambers. They will feel fear when they look into the dark. That is the point. We do not seek to rule them. We only ask to be left alone. Sometimes, to ensure peace, you must first teach the meaning of consequence. On the bridge of the Mai, Commander Teiji approached. Admiral, all vessels report ready. The Dizen system is secure. Yuna gave a final nod to Ji Hyan's image on the screen. Live well, Governor. The channel closed. Yuna stood and walked to the center of the vast, quiet bridge. She looked at the main viewer, at the blue-green world of Dizen, at the stars beyond. Take us home, Commander. Tuju relayed the order. Across the human fleet, engines powered by principles the Concord could not name engaged. But there was no flash of light, no violent rip in space. Instead, the dark, angular ships seemed to fade, their solid edges blurred. The light from the stars behind them wavered, as if seen through heat haze. Within seconds, the entire fleet, hundreds of ships including the colossal Mai, dissolved into the blackness of space. They did not jump away. They simply stopped being visible, returning to the perfect, patient silence from which they had come dot in the operations center on Dizen. The sensors showed the human fleet's energy signatures vanishing, not racing away, just disappearing, like a sigh. Ji Hyan looked up at the night sky through the window. It was full of familiar, steady stars. But she knew now that the darkness between them was not empty. It was watchful. It was patient. And it was home. The Galactic Concord learned remorse that day. It was not a feeling. It was a new reality. A galaxy they thought they owned now had a shadow they could not illuminate, a silence they dared not break. And somewhere in the deep, vast dark between the stars. Humanity continued its quiet watch, a testament to the simple, formidable power of leaving others to their peace, and ensuring with quiet, absolute certainty that they did the same.